Well, I think a lot of people aren't aware of this, but actually it's creeping up all over in every part of the country. I would say mainly Florida, California, and New Jersey, especially right now with the election of Phil Murphy. Um, Soviet leaders that were in the communist regime of the USSR would love the state of Florida because of the existing law that's there right now. A law that started out with maybe, possibly, I don't think it really was good intentions, but possibly good intentions, that leaves the door open to drugging and incarceration for any possible reason they can just dream up. And actually, there's a financial motive to do so, so it's actually even worse than the communist Soviet Union, for crying out loud. Um, the deal is that I'm talking about Florida's Baker Act. It's actually named after Maxine Baker. What they used to do in the Soviet Union was they didn't actually put people in gulags the way they did, a lot of people thought, when they put them on a working party. They would put them in these rehabilitation centers, but usually it was for criticizing the government or something like that. Well, in the state of Florida, there's actually a financial incentive by the psychiatrists to drug people and incarcerate them effectively for their own financial profit. And how they get the money is through the state of Florida itself. It's actually worse than communism, okay? But everybody pretty much ignores it because it doesn't hit enough people. But where they really hit people are the most are like retirees. Actually, now it's children. And like mothers are finding out that their kids are being taken away from schools and put into these places without their knowledge, and then they find out later on because the kid's a problem in school or whatever the hell it is. It's actually even worse than the Soviet Union. So it's I don't know what you can call it. It's like a wet dream for freaking Joseph Stalin, right? Now, right now, the current governor of Florida is Rick Scott. Now, he didn't design this law or start it, but I can tell you one thing. This is one corrupt yo-yo. Now, I can tell you, even though he's a Republican, you can see he's talking to Trump over here, and Trump's got his arms folded like he's not exactly listening to him. Rick Scott's got his hands open. I don't know. This guy, I guess it could be worse. I guess it could be worse than him. But he definitely would have been not my number one choice for a Republican. And I have voted Republican all the time, but I don't like this guy, I can tell you right now. So I'm going to get on a little bit with the Baker Act. This is actually off a blog a little bit. Baker Act, also known as the Florida Mental Health Act of 1971. See, mental health, if you notice, the mental health professionals are diagnosing Trump from a distance and are saying he's got a mental health problem, he's got this, that, because they don't like him, basically, I'd say probably, I think it's estimated that 95% of the people in the psych field are hardcore liberals or socialist communists. So, right there, forget it, But they have a law in Florida named after Maxine Baker that allows involuntary institutionalization and examination of an individual for any reason at all. So it could be government employees, abusive relatives. So in other words, you can have your grandkids want your house and your 20 acres and your cars, your Mercedes or whatever the hell it is. They'll try to institutionalize you. Maybe they'll do something to you or whatever the hell it is. They get you institutionalized. They can make you a ward of the state and they can grab everything, And this happens a lot, actually. Actually, a lot of people coming down here in the state of Florida to retire. Oh, they're getting screwed up on this stuff. Hospice is getting crooked cops. Cops can come in there. They could say they can make up some garbage, and they'll give them they'll have a financial motive to steal your weapons and ammunition and stuff like that. And if you don't get them back through petition in the court, they get to keep them. So they got a financial motive to Baker Act people. Teachers could be doing this to anybody, any student for any reason. They got the power of God. Doctors get reimbursed by the state of Florida Department of Children and Families for people who cannot afford the psychotropic meds. but the doctors will get paid for that stuff and their services through the Kids Central, which is a pass-through entity for the Florida Department of Children and Families. So it's actually worse than communism. It's like communism with capitalism steroids mixed in. That's what's going on in the state of Florida. So, the Baker Act occurs over 100 the Florida Department of Children and Families, which has been on the forefront for corruption. It's amazing. I don't even know why they even have a Department of Children and Families. It's asinine. Even like the task force that's designed to stop kids being trafficked, they're corrupt. The cops everything's corrupt. It's corrupt all the way through. The more laws you put in, the more government you put in, it actually gets worse. There's absolutely nothing good about it. That's what's amazing. It's one of the things that's the old tenet from Thomas Jefferson is the government that governs best, the government that governs least. Right now, if there's ever a problem in the government, they say, well, let's make more laws and tax the people so we can implement them. Yeah. Well, Maxine Baker was a supporter of communism and large government socialism. She's the one that served on the chair of the House Committee of Mental Health. I hate this yo-yo lady. She's from South Florida. Actually, what's going on is South Florida is ruining the rest of Florida. That's really what's going on for the most part. Government and government licensed professionals are always right. You give people a little bit of power. The guy, I actually know the guy that was one of the co-authors of this law. He was an attorney. He was an attorney. I'll say he was an attorney. You know what happened to him? I don't want to say exactly what happened, but he wound up getting Baker Act. It was due to some meds they put him on because of an injury, which led to other things, and he wound up getting Baker Acted a bunch of times, and he lost his attorney license or license for practice law, whatever, in the state of Florida. And the guy's very intelligent. He's actually very intelligent. But, once you get in that system, you're screwed, right? He says before there was a Patriot Act, which is draconian, which was based upon a 911 scam. There was the Baker Act. The Baker Act is the Soviet Union on steroids. That's all it is. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because the Soviet Union never really had, like the people in the government in the Soviet Union, never really had a financial incentive to incarcerate people as much as what it is with the Baker Act. Now, I'm showing this guy, Phil Murphy from New Jersey, so I showed Rick Scott, Republican from Florida. Phil Murphy from New Jersey, another guy that, he's big money from Goldman Sachs. And I also want to say that, what's going on in New Jersey. This is one of his points. This was the last point, actually, and hopefully it's showing up on my thing. Behavioral health services. 2 bills. Assembly Democrats Gary Scherer, Valerie Huddle, Sumter, and all this, whatever, sponsored significantly improve New Jersey's approach to behavioral health crisis care by expanding services and access through the state. In other words, paid for by the freaking record taxation of the state of New Jersey. The bills are the product of numerous roundtable discussions and meetings that were held with professionals and stakeholders. In other words, financial stakeholders, the ones that are pushing the drugs in the field of behavioral and mental health care. So once again, John, in other words, they screw your brain up, scramble it up. You could be the most intelligent, responsible person in the world. They will wreck your brain. And then once they do that, then the government will go, they'll get a millennial working in the government saying, whoa, we got proof, see? Now, you know what I mean. They're just shit. They're worse than, it's worse. Actually, it's been said, and it used to be thought of ludicrous way back in the 50s. I forgot who said it, revealed it. But the overall global plan was to have the USSR, and this was talking back in the early 1950s, move more and more towards capitalism, as the United States, which was capitalistic, mainly more so in the early 50s, towards communism. And so we can have a comfortable merger of the two nations and basically have a hybrid capitalist, communist, socialist system whereby the elite rule. Actually, what do you call it here? This behavioral services, healthcare garbage. You know, it all ties in with domestic violence, which is, you know, a reason not to get married, because if you have a psychotic female, you know, it doesn't matter. The male is always wrong. The government has the back of the female every single time. So if you aren't licking her feet and licking between her toes every single day, you're screwed. And that goes, you know, could you imagine a guy that has his whole livelihood wrapped up in a gun selling shop or some garbage like that? All he has to do is get in an argument with his wife, and he lost his entire business besides that, right? See how that works? How that works, too? It's amazing, man. You know? But, you know, I can tell you right now, and Rick Scott, you know, I talked a little bit about Phil Murphy. Phil Murphy's a crook from Goldman Sachs. You know, he got elected to governor. It's like, you know, shades of everything else that goes on in New York, New Jersey. Rick Scott, you know, I got a little bit here about some of his corruption, but I could tell you, just to look him up on Wikipedia, from Hospital Corporation of America, Columbine. He used to run that. He got like the $274 million retirement package from him in stocks and stuff. And that place was subjected to the largest amount of fines. It was in the billions for fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud. He was the CEO of it for years. They got charged with, I think, 12 or 14 felonies, the company did, but not Rick Scott. So then he comes to Florida, spends $75 million of his own money so he can get elected as governor, because there's medical down here. And one of the angles he's involved in is this Baker Act deal. There's big money in psychotropic drugs. It's actually worse than the Soviet Union. And Phil Murphy, same kind of garbage. He's doing the same thing. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing I respect, and I think there's a lot of commonality between the two. A lot of people, and I've seen Vladimir Putin make some mention about the Italian Cosa Nostra, whatever, in Italy, you know, talking about, you know, I saw him talking about it a little bit, Vlad, you know. I don't know about Vlad too much, but this is one guy, I put a video about, I don't know him or anything, but I respect the guy greatly. He made it to over 100 years old. They never thought he was going to make it through the prison term because he would be over 100 years old when he got out. Sonny Francis, I think I'm saying his name right. Maybe I'm not saying his name right. But I hope he lives a lot more or longer than this. Maybe he can take some carbon C60 and get a Lukowski multi-wave oscillator and live to be 200 and reverse age. You know, I like guys like this because they're fighting the government. They're out there to fight for their own families, their own survival, and any dollar you give to the government is going to evil communism, socialism, totalitarianism, and people with a fat ego that think they're God. You know, they don't earn their money; they just work for the government. In a lot of ways, Sonny, and because you know, I think it was what was he? I don't know what he was exactly. Colombo family or something? I don't know. You know, I'm not familiar with it, you know, but in a lot of ways, he's a lot like, you know, there's a lot of commonality between, you know, the Southern cause, who fought against the barbarians in the North for their freedom and their economic rights, and what the Cosa Nostra is doing today in New Jersey. Actually, what I respect the most in New Jersey is La Cosa Nostra. I tell you that truth, honestly. And I see a lot of commonality, a lot of common ground between that and the rebel cause. You know, it's about pursuing economic freedom. But in Florida, you don't have any kind of freaking freedom when you got the Maxine Communist Baker Act. And you know what? The cops know it, the judges know it, but you know what? They all profit by it. By the way, I found out, because this kid's pretty smart. I'm going to tell you right now, there's things with this Baker Act, to unscrew it, many times you gotta, if you did nothing wrong and the whole state was the whole problem, it was the government that did everything to you, you still, there's other things I found, and it was like the guy didn't say it directly, but it was one of the attorneys that I knew, and because I work at a CPA firm, right, and I find out a lot of different things, but the judges take another $5,000 under the table on top of it even though you're correct. They'll take another $5,000 to unscrew a Baker Act. That's how they are. So it's communist corruption all the way to the max in the state of Florida. And this is one of the reasons we had a rebel cause. Now, is Florida a rebel state? I'd say there's the remnants of the freaking true Floridians down here. Now, yeah, I wasn't born and raised in Florida, but you know what? I got Southern heritage going all the way back to the 1600s in South Carolina through the American Revolution and the war against northern Nazi aggression. Going all the way back from South Carolina from my grandfather, and I'm half Italian, which itself is a rebel too. Okay, I can tell you right now that people in Russia are probably going to start. They probably got more freedoms in some ways. I think the cops in Russia are very corrupt and they get away a lot of garbage, more so than in the United States. But then again, there isn't the money in Russia that they have in the United States to, do the type of things they are doing in the United States. For instance, they got more people incarcerated in the United States than they do in Russia, by far, or China. As a matter of fact, the United States is the incarceration capital of the world over bullshit, basically. Most everything. My opinion is they ought to take every single person that works in the prison system and put them in jail, along with the cops, judges, district attorneys, and all the politicians, and throw away the key. And that's why I look at, the rebels are La Cosa Nostra too. That's the way I look at it. Sometimes, I guess you're from New York, and you're La Cosa Nostra, you see a guy with a hat like that and a flag, and he's like, hey, what's this hillbilly? Well, in a lot of ways, he's got a lot more in common with you than you think, man. I don't know. Maybe I got a little bit of both, man. I'm a Confederate Italian, right? Which is kind of worse. You heard of Italian American? I'm an Italian Confederate. Anyway, so, Sonny, I like this guy a lot, to tell you the truth, But, the deal is, people in the United States believe these jerks. They think they're going to elect one of these jerks and they're going to fix all their problems. You know what you are when you elect somebody like this, whether it's Phil Murphy or Rick Scott or Donald Trump. Donald Trump, yeah, I think Donald Trump's all right, okay? But when you think we got Trump now. Well, when you freaking say that, you just gave up all your rights. You're a slave. But bottom line, in Florida, with the Maxine Baker Act, even Joseph Stalin would have never thought of something like this, where he can keep his subjects in control and make money off it at the same time. That's what it is. It's worse than communism, actually, in the state of Florida. Actually, it is. To tell you the truth, when I get the hell out of here, possibly, one thing is, my dream would be to take all the people in the government, and to tell you the truth, in government, it actually runs worst, because what they're doing right now is they're bending over backwards to, push minorities in government, and you know what's going on there. Oh, God, you should see what's going on there. It's like when minorities get in government, you talk about racism. There's racism more by far from minorities to Caucasians than what there ever was from Caucasians to minorities, because they've been brainwashed to left and right that the Caucasians are all the evils of all the world and all this garbage. Bullshit. Look around, everything you freaking touch and use today, it was developed by a Caucasian, including your toaster, microwave, your cell phone, your car, all your electronics, your computer, your internet, your telecommunications, the HVAC, heating, air conditioning units in your house, the transportation, the whole 9 yards. All developed by Caucasians. Yeah, right. Yeah, the whole freaking everything we've done, everything's been, from Caucasian. But hell, I'll tell you what, man. But they get the chance, I'll tell you what, they'll turn you into a brain dead zombie in a second flat. They will, because they got the power. And actually, you'll see, the liberals are. Well, you know what's going to happen with the liberals? It's everything they do is going to bite them in the ass. But you know what? if I see this state of Florida keep moving more and more towards this communist crap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell my place to an Islamic Somalian and say goodbye, have a nice day. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Anyway, this channel, this American Russian channel survival, whatever the hell it was, I really didn't open it up for any kind of special reason, but I do think that the New World Order has a plan to have the USA and Russia mutually destroy each other, which would be a Soros goal because he hates both the United States and Russia. And actually, I've opened up this channel to kind of, give a little encouragement to both the United States and Russia to fight excess government and crap. Russians are cool, okay? Actually, my family was, going back a generation. The Italian family grew up in a Russian neighborhood. They know all about Russian Christmas. As a matter of fact, I keep my tree up past Russian Christmas. Even though I lean heavily Jewish, I kind of like Christmas and stuff, And, the Russians were friends with ours a long time. Actually, I worked for a Russian guy that was a Russian colonel in the Russian army. I was down here in Florida for a few years, the Russian colonel, The guy was a pretty cool, hard-ass little kick-ass individual. But, the deal is, communism's bad in Russia and the United States. And in Florida, we got the Maxine Baker Act. Mental health is a crock of crap, man. It's like, it's just anybody could say anything about anything and say, yesterday, for instance, I couldn't find my 12 millimeter wrench. When I was working, I swear to God, I was thinking to myself, can you imagine if a mental health professional was following me around? I couldn't find this damn wrench. When you lay something down, you say, where the hell did I put it? Sometimes you lay down your eyeglasses, you say, but then you find them eventually. I did find it yesterday. It was on the top of my toolbox of my El Camino, right? But, a mental health professional would say, for their financial benefit and gain, that you have lost control of all your, abilities and crap because you laid something down and you couldn't find it. That's the way they'll interpret it. Because they're going to make money giving you the drugs, reimbursed to them, and their paycheck from the Department of Children and Families. Actually, yesterday when I was looking for that thing, I was like, where the hell did this thing freaking go? It disintegrated. I was looking under the engine. I knew I took it. I knew I used it to tighten up the fan belt on a Suzuki 4x4. The little Suzuki SJ413, like a samurai thing. And I said, I knew I did it. I knew I had it then. I said, did I throw it in my toolbox? I take the toolbox apart and looking like, no, it's not here. There's another toolbox. No. Did I put it under the El Camino? No. I didn't. I wouldn't have used it under there because I was using a 1/2 inch and a 9/16 under there. I know I didn't take it inside. I'm looking on the ground. I'm looking all over the engine. Last night I noticed it. It was on top of I must have went and started up the El Camino. I was working on both cars, and it was lifted on the top of the bed toolbox in the El Camino. I was like, oh, there it is. In the meantime, I ordered another set of wrenches because I was so pissed off at losing. I couldn't believe I lost that fucker after owning it 10 years, but I found it. But the deal is, they would look at that. They would look at that. A mental health professional would look at that, and they would say, and they write down shit, and they drug the crap out of you. That's what they would do. These people are communists. And you know what they are? A lot of them are being pulled in from the minorities. And you know what they're doing? They're getting back at Cracker Whitey to the max. That's what they're doing, man. I'm telling you that right now. So if you're Russian and you're white and you're going to come to the state, don't. Unless you're aware of this act. This act is worse than what happened in the Soviet Union under Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Because there's a financial incentive to freaking do this to people. They could steal everything you have. If you were the most intelligent person, say you were an engineer in Florida and you worked on, I don't know, rocket engines or something like that. Say you never missed a financial payment in your life. Say you never committed a crime in your life, ever, never did anything. You can come over here with your money, and if they Baker Act you here in Florida, and they give you enough drugs, because there's the financial incentive to do this now, because it pumps money into the psychs in the system, all coming from the taxpayers' money in the state of Florida, all with the knowledge of the politicians, and Rick Scott, and people like now and Phil Murphy in New Jersey. You'll lose everything. And that's exactly what they're doing to the retirees in Florida. The only good thing about this state is the sunshine. Now, for me, the only thing I like about Florida is my attachment to the CPA firm that I work in. I can give a rat's ass about the sunshine even, and the warmth. That's the only thing I like about this state is me working for the CPA firm. Otherwise, I don't care. I mean, if I'm living out in BFE in Tennessee out in the hills, I'm not going to be working in some CPA firm like I am near downtown, okay, in a more metropolitan area of Florida. So that's the only thing I like about it. That's about the only thing that's keeping me here. There's nothing else I like about it. I think it's garbage, to tell you the truth. It's a communist state. But, if you're in a communist state, just like if you're in a communist state of New York City, which is a state, it's a city, but it's a city-state, or New Jersey, the way to fight them is like what Sonny does. This guy is a hero to me all the way. He is. I look up to him like I don't know, maybe a god, but, he's a human, but this guy who's a good guy, And a lot of it is he's got a lot, even though you think one's a country bumpkin with Johnny Reb, and, Sonny is from New York City, whatever. A lot of it, it's the fighting the system all the way, That's really what it is, and that's really what you got to be. So, anyway, let me just state that, beware Russians, if you come to the state of Florida. It's garbage. And this is going on throughout the United States. So, maybe you know what? If Vladimir Putin blew up some cities in the United States, I can give a damn. I can already see what's going on. Some of the cities in the United States are so far gone. He could blow up Detroit. We really don't need it anymore. You know what I mean? and that's the way. He could blow up D.C. When Trump talked about putting a wall on the southern border of the United States, I said, so what? What do you need a wall on the southern border of the United States for? How about a wall around Washington, D.C.? How about that? That would be a lot better. So, anyway, people in Russia don't realize the angles that are going on in the United States. And, I know Vladimir Putin is not going to like Johnny Reb either because he's anti-government. Okay? But that's okay. I don't worship Vladimir Putin either. But, that's the whole point. You got to be your own man. You got to be independent. Stick with your own family, and stick for your own rights. And this is why I really love this guy, Sonny. That's what he was about, really. If you really want to know what a crooked mafia is, politicians. When they had that show, The Sopranos, I remember watching some YouTube clips on that. I was like, how come they're always showing the cops and the FBI squeaky clean? No way in hell. No way in hell. That's not how it really is. Government is corrupt. And naive morons think that they're being protected by the government. They're going to find out eventually what it really is. Do not trust the cops. Do not trust judges. Do not trust district attorneys. Do not trust politicians. They're all your freaking enemy. Period. That's what goes on.